Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our third panel here at Keep on the Borderlands in 2016. In today's panel, we're going to be discussing company and household leaders. An often missed, yet very official or very powerful, but unofficial, as in typically not elected by the general populace, but unofficial leadership position. These often form the bedrocks for some of our various lands and kingdoms, and we don't always discuss them at length. So we're going to take an opportunity today to really have that conversation, how to succeed, how to stumble, and how to recover from those stumbles so that hopefully it doesn't become a bad failing story. All right, we've got both companies and household represented. We're going to talk about the different spectrums of what they bring to the game of Amtgard, and specifically what the leadership role within those bodies mean. So if you would, from my left to my right, Lady Jet, if you would, just describe yourself. If you would, introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, and anything about your household or company that you have that you'd like to share.
I'm Lady Jet, Dame Jet, whatever you want to call me. I am a Saracen. I'm from the Rising Winds, and I'm from Dragon's Tail. I'm the Saracen High Speaker, or excuse me, Lieutenant High Speaker. I want to be High Speaker someday. And I'm also a Grand Mistress under the Household of the Amazons.
I'm Konrad. I am from Talbagor, in the Missouri area, the Kingdom of Talbagor, rather. I'm part of a company called Grendel. Been in the game for a little while. Ups and downs you spoke about earlier. I can speak to that pretty good. That's about it.
My name is Scifee. I'm from the Valley of the Twin Rivers, which is in Ohio, so I'm under Rising Winds. I am the leader of one kind of permanent, I guess you'd call it, household called the Death Kebabs. We focus on cooking. And a second one that has a rotating leadership called Team Blue Shell that runs the night quest that I'll be running on later tonight. So other than that, not been in the game horribly long, but having a lot of fun at it. So.
My name's Sir Gorin. I'm from the Principality of Northreach, which is in Dragonspine. It's up in Alaska. I've been in several companies. I'm not currently in any companies or households, and wanted to kind of chat about what it's like to be in a company that's completely cut off from the rest of Amtgard.
Great topics. Jet, I'm going to start with you. Can you just briefly cover what's the difference between a household and company?
I think that with a company, you generally find a group of people who are of like mind, and they have a hierarchy more often than a household. They're fighting company generally. They want to be out on the field, beating each other with foam, and a household generally does not have. Depends on the Amazons have a hierarchy. However, homegrown households don't generally. They're more mild-mannered. They're more built around certain things like role play or different things that other people like to do as a group. That's my take on it. It's just something like that. The hierarchy makes a difference.
Okay. Does anybody else want to expand on that at all, or?
I believe a fighting company is more of out there, you're doing things in public and everything else, whereas a household isn't quite as on the field presence-wise, but their presence is known elsewhere. I believe you mentioned cooking and everything else. Most people love the fact, my company's a bunch of fat guys, we love to eat. So we have people, we love it when people cook. Let's leave it at that. Apparently I wasn't supposed to talk anymore, didn't want to.
Okay, that's a good place to start. So Scifee, you mentioned you're a member of two households, is that right?
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about both of those, if you don't mind.
Team Blue Shell is the one that I started with. It formed around the need to kind of have a continuing structure to keep Night Quest, because starting fresh from the ground up and not having the previous year's mistakes or issues to learn off of was beginning to be a problem with our growth here at Keep. So last year we took the core of what had been the Night Quest team for 2014, and we were joking around about different names, and we ended up calling it Team Blue Shell out of the belief that you shouldn't always reward the people who are doing the most. Instead, we should function as sort of the Mario Kart Blue Shell. just because you're in first doesn't mean you get to stay in first. We should actually be evening the playing field and not just widening that gap, especially with something as fun and roleplay centered as Night Quest. It was a fun idea because it was like, why are we giving everything to the teams that are already winning? So, Death Kebabs started around the same time. Last summer I was regent of the Rising Winds, and we did a chicken kebab skewer meal for June Feast, and I had a great team for it. They really pulled through. I was warned that kebabs were labor intensive. I didn't quite take that to heart, so I was threatened under pain of death that if we ever attempted to do kebabs again, I was going to be ousted. But we formed a household around it. We have Rogers Raiders near us that put on great food, and we didn't really have a Rising Winds group that did that. So got a bunch of people that were interested in cooking, and we've been doing that since.
Gorin, you want to give some of the same perspective? Companies and households. I know you're not actively in one, but when you were, what were you participating in?
So I've actually never been in a household, mostly because for me, running the organization has always kind of been my household. But when I was in a fighting company, it was actually a long time ago. We were in the Duchy of Astor Winds, which is in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is the farthest north chapter we've got, and it's landlocked. I mean, it's 6-hour drive to any other city, and that's just in Alaska. So pretty remote. And we just had a fighting company where we kind of recruited, honestly at the time, like the best and brightest people around us. They were sort of drawn to us, we were drawn to them. And it created a very interesting environment where after a while, the people that were all in office ended up coming from our company, not through any sort of politics or anything, but because they were just the most capable people in our park. And that actually led to the disbanding of our company. Because after a while, we realized that the chapter itself had kind of become like, if you want to be in the Cool Kids Club, you have to join this company. And that was, we felt, incredibly detrimental to what we were trying to do within our park. And so actually, I guess technically, we became a household and just sort of stopped operating as we did before. So I guess I'm technically in a household.
Okay.
Unofficial.
Jet, you want to tell us a little bit about the Saracens and the Amazons?
Sure. The Saracens are one of the oldest fighting companies in all of Amtgard. We're probably pretty close to the biggest, if we're not the biggest. We touch just about every land, and we're kind of loud and boisterous, and we're a little bit proud of ourselves. And we're known by the colors that we wear. Red and black, obviously, and we are a tribal system. So if you're a member, you start out as a tribal initiate, you move up to a Saracen initiate, and then you finally become a full S Saracen, which gives you voting rights. The Amazons, however, are a household. We are the largest household in all of Amtgard. We're also, I think, the oldest household in all of Amtgard. We cater to the women of Amtgard. Now, that does not mean that the men are not important. It does not mean that we are feminazis or anything like that. We love the men, but it's somewhere that the women can go to talk about the things that women are concerned with within Amtgard. The support system is there. You know, there may be a woman in one area that she doesn't have any, she may be in a park that's mainly men and she feels alone, so she can come to the Amazons and get that support. We also have a hierarchy that it was originated by Dame Andrelaine. She's the queen of the Amazons, and the rest of us are either related to her, because we do a mother-daughter line. We're either related to her one way or another. And it carries out through the lineage, and the ladies are very proud of the lineage that they hold.
Konrad, you want to share a little bit about Grindel?
Sure. Start of the game, I want to say 2000. As with all groups, and our social structure inside of Amtgard is pretty much, I hate to say it, but it's a little like high school. you got your cliques, you got your stick jocks, you got your art jocks and everything else. So you find the group of people, it's the best way to put A&S because they're pretty skilled. I don't have that ability yet. You've got the different groups. Everybody wants to hang with their own group and run with the big dog, so to speak. We sat around in our local area in St. Louis and we were like, I see a lot of different companies, but you know what? Let's start our own. Let's do something different outside the box. We were a completely inclusive company when we started the company. All you had to do is come to say, we want to join you, and you're a member of the company. We're based off of Viking social structure. You've got your slaves, and you work your way up to be a full bird, which a lot of the companies are. They have their own structures. Best way to put it is we've made our little company into a friendship where we will literally travel several states over to hang out as friends now. So, as with most companies, you become very strong bonds with everybody else in any social organization. That's pretty much what Grendel turned out to be, is like a family as well.
Okay. So let's talk companies just a little bit, and then we're going to come back to households and bounce around a little bit. So companies are typically pretty exclusive, where you can only be a member of one, but households are depending on your thing, right? So why only one company?
Show your allegiance. When you declare to a company, you are with them. I thought, the way I remember it is they brought it up that you can be in multiple companies now as long as they're not in your region. So like if I wanted to be in Grendel in our area and I wanted to go hang out in Texas, I can team up with another company down there is the way I thought it was. If that's not the case, obviously you want to rep yourself, rep your company, wearing your colors and everything else. Show who you are, show who you go with. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing as well.
I think it's because most people only have one tunic.
Well, no, I get yelled at all the time because I keep buying all kinds of different clothes. My wife doesn't like that. In fact, I want to make him make me something because his stuff's nice. He's an art
Grendel
job.
Primarily located here in Town of Gore, or?
No, we're in Rising Winds as well. As we talked earlier, you mentioned about fails and everything else. At one point in time, when we first started, we got so big so fast, we had no idea what we were doing. When you make it open for anybody, anybody could declare. You had literally everybody. Like, oh, wow, you guys got a cool factor. We always have food. I mentioned that we were larger men. We always have food. We always feed people. We're pretty inclusive. Now, as with all social structures, some people start to do things that you're just kind of like, this isn't really, I don't really like that idea. So you wheedle it down. Well, we imploded years ago. Went down to like 5 members when we were several hundred. We're building back up. So, we talked about good and bad. We learned from our mistakes. We were able to stay alive and start to grow. So we're paying attention to what's going on. I'm pretty sure most companies and even households have had that kind of situation. Like-minded individuals always draw to each other. That's a great idea in most cases. Sometimes the alpha aspect doesn't always work so well. I hope that answered your question.
No, it did. It's very good. It's a challenge, right? When we have conversations about companies and household, that's a broad and often long continuing kind of thing. You got the strong structure, like Jet mentioned about the company, and then also maybe the loose friendship bond, and the singular purpose, maybe of a household. The conversation so far seems to be like households are often have a specific purpose that we kind of get behind and we rally to support.
Yeah.
Where a company may be a little bit more of a holistic bond is really what I'm picking up from, and so I'm just trying to really get the most out of this conversation. So let's talk about that. And I'm gonna throw this is I shifted between company and household, but let's talk. Scifee, how do you avoid it becoming a political entity that Gorin kind of hinted at? So he's going to go last as we go through everybody. Or do you avoid it? Or do you just embrace the fact that, now we are a lobbying organization for our beliefs?
I almost definitely in the Rising Winds, we run into it almost exclusively with companies as opposed to the households. And I think that's partially because households have that specific goal. So it's really hard for me as a feast cooker to just say, well, here's my politics. I've got to get that on the table. I can cook feast for any king or queen. Sorry. But with companies, you often have, as he described, some people call it a cult of personality. So you have a very strong shift towards that company that all feels the same way about one objective, or they all feel the same about a hot topic election issue. So you do end up with large voting blocks that often wear the same colors, they're repping together. And then once you have that established, it's almost, I've never seen it not turn into this voting block feels this way, this voting block feels that way. I've seen some companies that split a little bit on it, but I find it hard to separate that out because it's everybody being so like-minded. They tend to vote the same way because they're together for that same purpose. So,
Jed, is that your experience too?
Yeah, pretty much. Like you said, birds of a feather kind of flock together, and we're a family, so we kind of act as a family. And we kind of tend to go one direction if it's a political issue.
Okay. Is that a good thing?
It can be.
Can you give an example? And I'm not doing that. I don't want it.
right.
I sound like I feel like I'm going south. I want to make sure we capture both ends because I think there is both.
I think it can be in that because you're showing that effort toward that one person. But it's generally your friend that may be running for a certain office, and you're getting behind that person. So that's one way it can be a good thing because you're showing your support for your company mate or your person from your household. It can be detrimental because that might not always be the best person for the job. So, it can run both ways. But it can be a rough road to hoe.
The block voting aspect, I see it all the time. I understand it. I accept it. It's just what happens. I try to make sure in our company that we don't have that. Company meetings. We try to get them done. Everybody tries to get them done pretty quickly. The problem comes into when you're sitting there with everybody has their own opinion. So then you're jockeying for position. And typically before you leave, we're like parents. All of us are like parents. We leave with a united front. So we talk to the other members of the company, and this is what was said, this is what was decided, this is what's going on. So then when they talk to one or the other of the leaders of the company, they know this is how it's going to be. There's no, well, so-and-so told me this, so-and-so told me that. Same with the block voting. We all consensus and talk about things. We see different points of view. I may not agree with somebody else in my company about something on an issue, and they can speak to me and be like, well, you're an asshole. You don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, well, why? And they explain to me, so it's like, oh, well, maybe I was thinking about that wrong. So now I'm on their side. So that's how block votes, I think, happen as well, the like-minded aspect.
Yeah.
Does that cause an escalation? Because you mentioned the fact, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit. So you mentioned the fact that you all come together and you come up with one message. So to the person on the outside, it sounds like you said, we agreed we're going to take one approach as a team. You created that block vote.
Not in voting, and especially just on our company. If we're talking about politics as it goes with monarchy or anything else like that, we encourage everyone to have their own opinion. We also encourage open debate. I am a very stubborn person stop it. I'm a very stubborn person. I get my mind set on something, and I'm also very hard to approach by some people. I don't mind someone telling me you're wrong, but why? Tell me why I'm wrong so that I can listen. Maybe I am wrong. I'm willing to concede the fact that I'm wrong. Does that answer your question?
It does, and just a very valuable, I think, reinforcement because unintentionally, I think you gave a little bit of a different message. At least that's how I took it. So I'm glad you cleared that up. Thank you.
Okay.
Scifee, so household, I'm skipping you to go to Gorin because you already answered the question. Sorry. So Gorin, you talked about how, especially landlocked Fairbanks, Alaska, that it did go a little bit south. As, again, like-minded people flock together, all of a sudden you're kind of running the show as a company, not so much as a land. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that and why? You elaborated already, but talk a little bit more about why you decided to go household after
Well,
seeing?
luckily for us, it went responsibly south. Like, I mean, we weren't pressured to disband or anything. We just realized as a group that what we wanted for Amtgard was becoming less and less achievable because of what we were achieving as a company, and those two things became at odds, and we chose the greater organization, which is what we want. And that's one of the things that's really important to keep in mind. So, like, I mean, you asked a minute ago whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, right? And it's really neither of those things. A company or a household, at its very nature, is a pre-organized group of people, and that's a powerful thing. It can be good or bad, and that can change every day, right? Because the way our organization is built, the ultimate power is democratic. It's the all thing, right? They can decide whatever. If you have a large chunk of the all thing that's going to do the same thing no matter what, it's a powerful thing. Some companies will say, like, we want to have our company debate all of this at the all thing and everybody votes however they want. Some companies will have that debate off-site and come in as a group, and everybody from the outside just sees 20 hands raised.
Yes.
And that's it. There's no discussion. That's the bad side of that, right? Because from the outside, you see this group of people that, I mean, you can completely undermine an officer. So it's important, in order to make companies a positive thing, because they're powerful no matter what, is to respect the organization that makes your company exist. Without Amtgard, you don't have a company. You might have a group of people, but it's not the same thing, right? And we have plenty of companies out there that actively undermine Amtgard, which is weird to me, whereas you have other companies do the exact opposite. So I guess as a company, you got to sit down and decide, do we want to be Shriners or Crips? Right?
Wow.
I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's the same thing. You're the same thing. You're a group of like-minded people trying to accomplish something. Do you care about the the overall environment or community that you exist in?
Or care about
And
yourself.
some companies don't, and they have reputations for that. And there are some companies that do, and they have reputations for that. So it's not good or bad, right? It's just powerful, and that can be dangerous, but it can also be incredibly useful. You get a company leader or a couple of company leaders that are on board with working with their monarchy, the stuff that they can accomplish is visionary. I mean, like, it's, but the opposite, you can just sit there and die and die and die forever, right? So in our situation, specifically, we saw that we were starting to go down the path where the company and the park were starting to have the same identity, and that was not good. I believe that on some level, your park should exist as a company, as if it were its own company, right? Like, I think that's really healthy for your group, that even if you're in a company, you might also have garb with your land's heraldry on it, and your people can feel like they're a part of that group, which sort of minimizes the exclusivity of a company, right? You don't get to automatically be in a company, except in rare situations, but you do get to automatically be a part of your chapter. So it's good to kind of have that mentality there too.
So Jet, you recognized successful leader in the Rising Winds as a park and kingdom officer, a very successful company and a household officer. So let's talk about those two perspectives from you real quick. What should or what can a kingdom level officer use a company or a household for, as avoiding the easy ones like Scifee said, well, we do the night quest at Keep. But what are some things that a kingdom officer can look to their householding and companies for?
Well, what I did is I ran gate a lot when I was starting out, and I went to my company mates and I said, "Look, I've got gate shifts I need to fill, guys. Who wants to take them?" Seriously,
That's
I
good.
started filling in the line, and then I started to outreach to the other companies and to the other, the households and everybody else. But I started there because I knew these people, and I knew that they were going to be handling your money. They were going to be touching that money, and they were going to be making sure that you got your name down and you were going to get your credit. That was important to me. I wanted people in those seats that I could trust beyond anything else. And I did that. Now, as far as my household went, I went to my ladies and I said, we've been asked to do a breakfast at Keep the second year we had it. What are we going to do? I don't know, but we're going to try something. And the Amazons are known across the land for having pancake breakfast. So that's what we did. We did a pancake breakfast. And up until this year, we've done a pancake breakfast. Keep's gotten a little too big for pancake breakfast anymore. Too much work and too much hassle. So this year, everybody got muffins. But You go to the people that you know and that you trust that can get those things started, and then as it grows, it just filters out. And I think that's a wonderful part of both of those groups, that you can go to those people and say, hey, I need your help. And then as a monarch, when you're stepping back as a kingdom monarch and you're going, who did what? What awards did these people do? And you have a group like the Amazons who did a luncheon, or you have the Saracens who set gate for hours and hours. You have that one award, and you can say, you're going to get the Order of the Flame. And it makes people's faces light up. Their company was recognized, or their household was recognized for doing that one thing that they did together. There's nothing like watching those faces.
Scifee, can you explain the Order of the Flame for us?
The Order of the Flame, and it's been a while since I looked it up. I thought it was particularly towards a company and not a household also. We've typically awarded them to companies in the Rising Winds, but it's given out once per reign to a group that has contributed in a large way to the kingdom. Typically, it's a service-oriented award because obviously fighting companies fight. We don't typically award them for fighting the most in the reign, but we have typically given it out for Saracens. For we saw red and black at every meal. They were doing all the meals, or we gave it out to scalpers because they were there emptying every trash can the entire mid-reign, something like that. So it really is a prized award that is given in recognition of a company not doing their normal thing, stepping out and saying, our people are going to take care of this for our kingdom. And typically they're not doing it because it's a service-oriented company. They're doing it because they want to show that kingdom they care. I'm being attacked.
I think we're all getting our share of the flies,
Yeah.
for whatever reason. So, Konrad, how can a company support their park or their kingdom?
Oh, many ways. I believe he had it best. If a monarch or the monarchy of a park and or kingdom can talk to the leaders of the companies, that is a powerful force to do good or bad. And I think we all love this game enough to do the most good we can. So when a monarchy says, hey guys, we would like to do a quest line through our kingdom, we would like your company to be all the monsters in the quest. Boom, done. You got a fighting company who's going to play the monster for the quest. Or we want your guys to run a feast. We want your guys to do this. Most leaders of companies will, and households as well, will absolutely jump on the opportunity to give back to what we love the most. That's the greatest aspect of it. You help when you're asked, you will help, hands down. I don't think I know of any company, well, a few companies, as you mentioned, like to break the game, as it were. But most of them want to give back to this organization that we all love.
I was just going to say, a lot of anybody who's been in leadership, you end up looking at an event or you end up looking at something you want to do, and you're automatically looking for large groups of organized people. And that's what your companies and households give you. You're not asking an entire park, which can be a very open and very different group of people. You want somebody to come in who already has their structure so that you can say, I need somebody with a structure to be cooks, servers, cleanup. And they're like, all right, we can run that for you. We've already got a structure. We've already got people to put in those spots. You just tell us where to put this block of people. And that's typically how they end up working best for their monarch, is using that structure they've already got.
If I could jump on that real quick. It's also, each company has its glowing aspects that they can do better. I mentioned the quests. We're talking about feasts and stuff like that. Some companies are better at running security. Mm-hmm. Some companies are better at cleanup. Mm-hmm. It's everybody has a use and wants to do something to feel useful. I think people need to start realizing, just ask.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, is everybody, and then there's also the monarchs that are just kind of like, I know they're going to do good, as Jet was saying. I know what these guys are capable of doing. I want to put them in this position. I guess it's a lot of also on us monarchs. As being monarch before as well, I didn't always look to some of the smaller groups because I wasn't sure how they would do things. But unless you get a chance, you never know what'll happen.
So, Gorin, what if I want to start a smaller group? Maybe I've got the choice between Grindel, Justicars, Sol Victus, and me and my friends just want to get together and create our own company. What are some tips for starting your own company?
The very first thing, you got to decide what you want to do. Like, why? I mean, because you're already hanging out with a lot of these guys, right? You got a small group of friends, so nothing's really changing other than y'all going to start maybe dressing in the same colors or whatever. So I think the most important thing you can do to start a company is decide on a direction. Why do we want to become a company? If we become well known, what would it be for? You know, because if you have essentially a quote unquote mission statement for your group, then you're always moving in that direction, and that allows you to progress. It allows you to get some recognition and legitimacy, and possibly be a really positive driving force for the organization, which should be hopefully the purpose for it in the first place, as opposed to, like, you know, getting back at that other company that wouldn't let us in or whatever. But I've seen it.
Daggone Crips.
The colors aren't yellow and black; they're black and yellow.
That's right.
Well,
Short-lived goals. Yeah,
we
did.
let both in.
Jet, how about you? Any tips for an aspiring company or a household member or leader?
Do what you do best. Just like Scifee, they like to cook, and that's what they did. They built a whole scope around cooking. You have to
Wanna give it to you
grow
guys
where you're
later.
planted.
Actually, I
And
need
so if
Pringles
you're
too.
good at that, take that, make it work, and then reach out to the other people that you know over here that may not have a place to belong, and say, would you like to join us? Would you like to come over and try this with us? Because that's what a lot of people in this game need, especially the new folks. They want to feel like they belong somewhere with some group, because if they don't belong, they're not going to stay.
Can't
And
hook 'em.
that's a big part of what we do here is we want these new people to come in and enjoy the game and play with us. So I think the biggest part of it is to just make sure that no matter who you are, what you are, make sure that you reach out to everybody that you meet.
Konrad, have you ever helped another newbie company? Have you ever helped another company
Yes.
succeed?
Succeed?
You wanna share that story?
Oh, jeez. Again, like I said, when we first started, we were completely, anyone could join. And I mean anyone. And through Talbagore, back when we were under Rising Winds, several people would come join us, and they'd realize that maybe the Viking hierarchy structure isn't for us. Maybe this person might be not the same person I want to hang out with. So they got a few other people, and we make sure we explain to everyone, look, if we're not the place for you, maybe we'll help you find a place, or start your own group. There's nothing wrong with it. If you guys are that like-minded to do such, several smaller companies in our kingdom started out that way because they join us, like, oh, you guys are so cool, we hang out, and it's like, maybe this guy's too much of a jerk, I don't want to hang out with him, he's not the same wavelength with me, I don't want to be around him. We're fine with that. Rejection in that aspect is fine, because as was touched about several times, the more people that play, the more fun we all have. So why would we want to turn someone away and make them not play? So if it's a competition aspect as well. If I've got my group of guys and now there's another group of guys out there to play with, well, guess what? We're having fun. So if we can help more companies, we do. But it also comes down to what I've said earlier. You have to ask. I can't read minds. Ask my wife. So anytime someone says something, that's what I have to go by. Answer the question? Or do I need to go further?
No, you're good. And Jen, I want to ask you this one. Some follow-up to some points made by Gorin. What if I'm not, sounds like they took a very mature approach to, hey, we've gotten a little bit too much of a stronghold or a stranglehold on the land. What if I'm not part of that in crowd? What do I do from the What is a company or a household leader's advice to somebody who's not in the company that maybe there's some odds where they feel like they're an outlier or they're ostracized from the group?
That's a tough one because I've had that experience. It was a one-on-one discussion with the person, and they kept saying, I don't feel like anybody's paying attention to me. I don't feel like I'm heard. You know, I don't. But they would let him go to the field with them and fight. But they would sit in the circle, nobody listened what they had to say. So I thought about that long and hard. And I was speaker at the time for the kingdom, and I thought, I'm going to change this. So the way I changed it was, it didn't matter what rank you were. If you had an opinion, you could voice that opinion. Because this particular person had some rancor against some of the elite fighters in our group. And they weren't doing exactly what he thought that as elite fighters they should be doing, which part of their job was to teach. So he called them out. Then they got really ticked off about that. But he was right. They weren't doing their job as the elite fighters to teach. And once that was called out and he was able to voice that opinion, things changed. And since then, because of that change, that group of elite fighters within our group has grown. And the teaching is continuing. And that's how you fix something when somebody doesn't feel, when they feel ostracized. You make sure that they're heard. Somehow, some way, they have to be heard. Everybody deserves their voice.
Real quick, it's our job as responsible adults to notice that and do something about it. In Tyler Gore, we have several kids with Asperger's. Mm-hmm. They don't do very well around other people. Mm-hmm. You find out their tics or whatever. I'm like, hey, today I need you to help me all day when I'm fighting on the field. They go out there and you make it seem like they just did all the work and you just stood there. Next day they're out there like, hey, I heard you said you like donuts. Here's some donuts. It's like, when did I say that? I don't know when I said that, but okay. Yeah, donuts sound good. And then you got their parents coming out going, what did you say to my son last week? Because all week he's been talking about this. It's like, I don't know, but I'm glad it worked.
So is it fair to say that even as a company and household leader, sometimes it's important to make sure that the other voices are heard? It's not just about you within the lands, right? Not to control yourself, again, as the fallen ones used as an example.
Yeah.
Mature adult
You got to be a responsible
yeah.
company, right? There's a couple things, and mostly it's for you guys watching at home. You don't need to be in a company. That's not a requirement, and you don't need that for to have an Amtgard identity, and that's critical to understand because a lot of people will be in certain environments where companies are really prevalent and kind of feel like that's what they have to do to fit in. That's not a requirement, and as companies, it's important to facilitate that message. If somebody's not really maybe interested or they don't fit in a company, that's okay. And honestly, you can always rep your park like it were your company. And I encourage everybody to do that, regardless of whether you're a company or a household. Make a belt favor, make a tunic, whatever, with your heraldry on it, and rock that. And that's and that's okay.
Please.
I was going to add to that. I've also run into players that might have social disabilities or just have had experiences where they're more fearful about speaking up. And for a lot of leaders, I've come to a couple leaders and said, look, this person wants to talk to you. And they're like, oh, I don't have time. Look at how much time that you actually spend in an event doing things like this. How much of this time could be spent reaching out to that one player that you know is uncomfortable, that you know is having a rough time and saying, what can I do to help? You might not even be able to help. But how much time does it take to listen on Facebook where you can multitask on your computer and do 5 different things, or stop at an event for 20 minutes and say, what's going on? What can we do? And at least then they know they're heard, and you can tell them, yes, we can help with this, or no, we can't, and here's why, but here's what I'd do to make this better. It doesn't take that much time, and if you want to lead, You've got to figure out that talking to people is the most important part. It's not, I'm tunnel vision, I'm not running this train into this tunnel. It's, I've got to bring all these people with me, and I've got to figure out how to make them want to go with me. So.
Well, that's a great point. Amazingly enough, time is wrapping up. We're already cutting into the next panel. We're doing that a lot today because there's some great conversations. So, as with every ALU panel, though, I want to make sure that we spend the last couple of minutes together just foot stomping any last-minute message. Maybe we've discussed it, maybe we haven't discussed it, but if somebody decided they were only going to listen to the 5-minute wrap-up near the end, this is where we start that 5 minutes. So, Jet, we'll start with you. What's that point or two that you want to make sure that people either know about company and household leadership from the perspective of being a company and household leader, or maybe from when they're not a company or household leader or not even associated with a company at all? It's a broad definition. The floor is yours, ma'am.
If you're going to be a leader in a company or a household, present yourself the way you want other people to see you, because they're going to make judgments about you by the way you act, by what you say. Role model what you want people to see. Be the person that you are, but don't put on airs. Don't get a big head. Be who you are, and be straight with people. Don't pussyfoot around. Tell them what you really think, but do it in a nice way. Because people don't like to be pissed off at you all the time.
I think that's a great message regardless of the context.
Right.
Konrad?
Last few minutes. So don't be afraid to help others. Use your company for what you can, the best you can for your group. Positive is always best. As a leader of a company, my thing is leader anywhere. Something as to grow into my maturity, I've had to learn is do what you think is best. Listen to those you believe, have your, best interest at heart, even when it goes against you, and never, ever be afraid to admit when you're wrong. That was something I had to learn the hard way myself. If you screw up, admit it. The only way to learn and grow and get better is to be like, I did this. Now I know what not to do. Let's go forward and do that positive as a group. Experiences passing on makes a big deal. Thank you.
Again, great message. Scifee?
I think I'm actually going to go back and echo something Jet said earlier, and it applies to companies, households, what you're even doing at an event, and that is find what you like to do. If you like being around a certain group of people, try and make that. Yeah, if you want to be an art jock, you go be an art jock. If your best thing is competing in tourneys and that's what you love, there are people that love that. There are always people that want to do the things that you want to do. Role play, art, service, whatever. And if you can't find anybody to do that, it's just because they haven't spoken up yet and you haven't either. Speak up, get on the boards, wherever your boards might be, and say, I want to start doing this. Who wants to do it with me? And somebody will speak up. And somebody will notice you and say, hey, that was the guy that spoke up about wanting to do this more. We should talk to him and bring him in the next time we do it. So be loud about what you like. It helps.
Communication.
Yeah.
Keep hearing that.
Remember that whether your company or household has 5 people or 500 people, it is a powerful aspect of the organization. And the most important thing that you can do as a company or household leader is to have self-awareness. And be aware of your organization, your company, and be willing to ask yourself, are we doing good? Or are we Crips? Don't be Crips. That's simple.
It's a pretty intense way to end up the panel.
Man,
A great point.
I want to be a Shriner.
Right? Be a Shriner.
I'm helping the kids.
Everyone loves those
cars.
Yeah,
Thank
well,
you all very much for taking
can't
time
ride on
out
one
of
of
your
those
event to
that
spend it
break
with us. I apologize. The flies decided to seek, the comfort of the tent as well. If I could, a quick round of applause for our panel members. And even a louder round of applause for our amazing volunteers. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of Keep.